Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we have an interesting topic. We're going to be looking at what is going on in terms of the international reaction to Israel's genocide of Gaza. And we're going to start off talking about how Israel is winning in some regards, but then losing in other regards to what is coming to be called the axis of resistance. You can consider it a battle between Zionists and anti-Zionists, or you could even consider it to be a battle between the declining unipolar Western hegemonic world versus the multipolar world led by countries, civilization states like Russia and China. And so starting off with one of the people I admire in geopolitics, Angelo Giuliano. I should be able to pronounce that because I'm Italian. He says here, what an effing clown. Argentina's new president, Javier Milei, I don't know how to pronounce that last name, participates in Jewish ceremony and declares support for Israel. Milei expressed his desire to study Jewish sources and supported Israel's right to defense. He condemned Hamas terrorism and defended the return of the hostages, also announced plans to move the Argentine embassy to Jerusalem. So I have a few comments on here in general. One, always glad that Angelo is working hard to expose Zionism and the atrocities of Zionism. Javier is very clearly the pro-Israel candidate that Israel wanted to win the Argentinian election. We don't know exactly what repercussions are going to come from this in terms of BRICS membership. There was early indications that Javier wanted to leave BRICS. Now it looks like he's going to try to stay in BRICS in order to hinder it from the inside, being a negative voice, a voice for Israel and the United States, which is not going to be good for BRICS. And he tried to back away from trade with China and Brazil, but because those are the top two trade partners of Argentina, it's not really going to work out for him. So he's had to walk back that as well. But we could clearly see that this is a person who is Zionist controlled. He goes on to say he supported Israel's right to defense. Again, it's not a right to defense under international law. Palestine has a right to fight against its occupiers. He goes on to say, condemned Hamas terrorism and defended the return of hostages. Well, here's the thing. Palestine has far fewer hostages than Israel. Israel kidnaps a ton of Palestinians and tortures them in prison. You can look at the prisoner exchange photos. Hamas and the Palestinians very clearly treat captured individuals very humanely, whereas the Israelis treat their prisoners very inhumanely. And it's very obvious some of the reasons why Hamas took those captives. One was because they expected the Israelis to be more benevolent towards the hostages and not attack the hostages while they were retreating from their attack on October 7th. But that was not the case. Actually, Israel just attacked the Hamas militants as well as the hostages because they didn't care about civilian casualties, even if it was their own civilian casualties. But they also, because Israel is kidnapping and holding hostage so many Palestinians, far more than Hamas is holding of Israelis, they wanted to do a prisoner exchange for innocent Palestinians. And so if you're going to talk about returning the hostages, you have to remember that Israel has far more hostages than the Palestinians have of Israelis. And so then move the Argentine embassy to Jerusalem, obviously needlessly provocative. We see again, another Zionist wins into office. It's really interesting because people like to condemn the far right in Western countries as being a white supremacist thing. But you see here that clearly the far right, at least the more successful elements of the far right, are very pro-Zionist. And that's not something you would see from people who are considered to be a part of the far right, the Nazi type of far right. And so we see here the far-right PVV party, led by Geert Wilders, has won the Dutch general election. This does not mean that he's actually going to get into office. They need to form a coalition, and it looks like everyone's going to form a coalition against him. One good thing is he is against the Russia war, but then he's for the Israeli war. So really, just like American politicians, you can have they're against one aspect of foreign policy, but they're for the other aspect of foreign policy of the oligarchs. And so you never really win whenever you're electing officials. You're just choosing which part of the oligarchs' foreign policy to prioritize. And even then, it's hard to say whether elections are legitimate or not in the West. So after Slovakia, the Netherlands has now also elected an anti-liberal government that refuses to be a vassal of the Biden administration in the United States. I don't know about that because, sure, they're against the current Russian conflict, but they are still beholden to the Zionist regime that owns and operates the United States. So I wanted to get out of the way, and I should mention Geert Wilders, his wife is a Zionist, so he's very clearly beholden to the Zionists. So we have two instances here, Argentina and the Dutch government are both turning in a direction that is more Zionist control. However, we are seeing in other instances that Zionism is losing in the majority of the world right now. So we see the Maldives government is introducing a bill that will ban Israeli passports from entering the country. Great, we love to see that. A lot of them are Mossad agents anyways. We see that Barcelona has become the first European city to suspend all relations with Israel until a definitive ceasefire in Gaza is declared and the basic rights of the Palestinian people in compliance with United Nations resolutions are guaranteed. Israel has been in violation of United Nations guidelines, United Nations rules since its inception. And so that's never going to happen. Israel's entire existence goes against international law. But it is good to see cities like Barcelona that are taking a pro-Palestine stance. We also see that South Africa, again, a country that understands apartheid states and fought against an apartheid state, is coming out and supporting Palestine in order to remove the apartheid state of Israel. And so South Africa's parliament votes 248 to 91 to close the Israeli embassy in South Africa, send the Israeli ambassador home, and suspend diplomatic relations with Israel. So more and more progress is being made. It's clear to see that the vast majority of people are anti-Zionist, but we're seeing more and more pressure on governments to represent the people. And again, these are supposed to be democracies, so they should be representing the people anyways, but we're seeing more and more evidence that they're being pressured to at least make token gestures that are anti-Zionist. We also see that Scotland's parliament passes a motion calling for an immediate ceasefire. Again, this might be a token gesture, but it is something. It is showing that the people are forcing these so-called democratically elected governments to take steps to stop the Israelis. And we're going to see that some governments, I have this in another video, some governments are taking a more active role in terms of stopping the Israelis. We're going to talk about the Yemeni government. We're going to talk about Somali pirates, maybe even the Algerians, but that's in a separate video where various countries, various groups are taking active steps to hinder the Zionist forces, the racist, satanic, demonic Zionist forces. We see here Saudi Arabia, their crown prince, MBS, calls on all countries to stop exporting weapons to Israel. Again, I think this is a token gesture, but it might be a decent token gesture. But if he was legitimate about this, he would be calling for a stopping of oil to Israel, which obviously the Muslim countries of the world being major oil producers, they could easily do that. And so if the major Muslim countries were willing to take these steps that were actually anti-Zionist and for Palestine, they definitely could, and that would ground Israel to a halt in terms of its genocide of the Gazan population. And here, this last one, I view this as me taking a step to make sure that you step back and recognize this is one conflict in a much broader set of conflicts, and this is one theater of war. And so there's an axis of resistance, the multipolar world, the anti-Zionist coalition, whatever you want to call it, and they are opening up or reacting to various tensions in various regions of the world. Whether it's the coups in Africa, or the Israeli-Gaza situation, or the Russia-Ukraine conflict, or the tensions with Taiwan and China, Taiwan being a province of China, or any number of things. They're all related to this worldwide conflict, which I think history books are going to say these are the opening salvos of World War III. And so here we see that North Korea is trying to escalate tensions, and Kim.com is talking about this in the wider context that it should be framed at. North Korea withdraws from security treaty with South Korea. We will deploy more powerful armed forces and new military hardware along the border. Kim Jong-un, and this is Kim.com talking, Kim Jong-un opens up another conflict to accelerate the decline of U.S. power with the goal of collapse of the U.S. economy. And so this is getting at the fact that the United States is far overextended. It can't really handle any one of the current conflicts. And so the multipolar world is doing everything it can to stretch America even thinner, because America really can't help itself. It has to confront the multipolar world in every block, every theater of war. And due to that, the multipolar bloc is getting the Americans, the Western-led world, to react to their moves. And so this is another one of those instances. So we see that Israel and the Zionist-controlled West is losing. So high five to that. We are winning. The forces of good are winning. And so if you enjoyed this video, if you found it to be helpful, informative, interesting, please give us a like. It does help us in the algorithm, and we appreciate that. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and Rumble. Right now, our Rumble videos are just being synced from YouTube, but if we ever do get banned from YouTube, we'll be posting videos directly to Rumble. Rumble is more of a free speech platform. We have to watch what we're saying here on YouTube. We're clearly getting throttled in the algorithm on YouTube now. We used to have 4-digit numbers of viewers. Now we're having single-digit viewers. So it's pretty much inevitable that we will be transitioning to Rumble. But until then, you can still subscribe to our channel on YouTube, but just make sure to remember that our backup account is on Rumble. And please leave us a comment in the comment box below. Really good comments from our returning viewers. I read all of the comments, questions, concerns, critiques. I do try to revise things depending on what you guys tell me, guys and gals tell me is working and what's not working. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.